Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Welcome to the third. Is that right? Yeah, third week of the Island Box. We were in Italy, right? Ischia first week. We were in Corsica, France last week. Now we're back to Italy. We're in Sardinia or Sardegna, depending on where you're located, how you pronounce it. But we're tasting this little guy today. So looks like a handwritten or like a font of a handwriting of a actual owner. But 2019 Osvaldo Soddu Bruncu Boeli Cannonau di Sardegna is what we're tasting today. But before we get into any of that, I have some announcements, quick little announcements. You should all seen the invoices go out. Our invoices went out 3 days ago. I know this is quite a quick turnaround, but I am leaving DC. By the way, I'm in DC. This is my old home because you're recognizing this door. But I'm leaving on Saturday. All the wines are being delivered tomorrow, and between tomorrow and Friday, I'm processing all of this, shipping everything out. So I need to close out the enrollment. So I know it's a quick turnaround. But if you are planning on joining us next month, just go ahead and pay the invoice right away. If not, just let me know so I can prepare for all of that. But I need to wrap all of that up tomorrow. I'll start processing it tomorrow. So if I don't hear anything back from you, or if I see your invoices outstanding, tomorrow I'm going to start hunting you down. So help me, help you. You don't want me hunting you down. So yeah, just pay the invoice or just let me know. And in case that matters, next month's theme is what I'm actually kind of calling it a weirdo pool party. So we did this like last summer as well. It's like the summer pool, summer crushers kind of a box. Similar idea, something easy. It's hot, you know. These are all the wines that I want to drink when I'm sitting by the pool, by the beach. Just kind of want to, you know, something that you can pound, but also like there's enough there that it keeps you coming back. But more than anything, I'm also calling it a weirdo pool party. So it's all the kind of like the fringe varieties, satellite regions, or kind of like classically what we think of as what we want for a pool party. But like there's something a little bit weird about it. Like I don't know if you guys went to these like pool parties in high schools where like you go and then sometimes like it's like all the not so cool kids show up. You know, so usually I was like the not so cool kid that showed up at these parties, but you know, it's basically like all the underrated, the artsy fartsy, unpopular kids fucking pool party. Think of it that way. So of all the pool party wines, it's basically what the next month's theme is. So in case that matters, that's what's happening. Besides that, I don't really have any other questions, any other announcements. The only last part is that we're donating 1% of our gross revenue to Malaria Consortium this month. So if you want to check out what they do, the work they do, and then donate alongside 6 Foot Wine Club, the chat link is right there. Any questions about anything that I just went over before we get into the wine? Excellent. Hearing none, let's get into the wine. We're tasting this guy, 2019, so got some age on it. Osvaldo Soddu Bruncu Boeli Cannonau di Sardegna is what we're tasting today. By the way, Bruncu in local dialect in Sardinia means summit, so a hill. So Boeli is the name of the Bruncu Boeli is the name of the vineyard. But in case you were wondering what that meant, that's what that is. All right, let's look at the map. Here you go. Here's a map of Italy. Should look pretty familiar. Hold on, sorry, what is happening with my? Should look pretty familiar. Sardinia or Sardegna is right here. We were here last week, right? In Corsica, which is a French island. So it's just south of there in Sardinia. Unlike the rest of Italy, particularly along the south in Sicily and whatnot. This is, by the way, Sardinia is the second biggest island in the Mediterranean, right after Sicily, which is right here. So the biggest, second biggest, by the way, third biggest is Cyprus, in case you were wondering. I just learned it today as well. So yeah, we were here. We were here the first week, that little island called Ischia, off the coast of Campania, right? And then we're in Corsica last week, and then now we're here. As you see on this map, these kind of winemaking regions are kind of spread out right in the middle, right here, particularly along the east coast. Right here is where the mountain is. So that's why you don't see the viticulture happening here, and then it's kind of spread throughout the island. This particular producer, by the way, I tried to look up Sardinia wine map. It wasn't necessarily, I couldn't find anything that was good enough. Like there were maps with like a bunch of wineries that are all on there, but like I couldn't really find one with a good map of just DOCs and DOCGs like handed out and different sub-regions. So I apologize for not being able to provide that for you today. But anyways, they are different. I learned also myself, admittedly, I will say, I'm almost kind of embarrassed to admit that all these years of being in wine, I have never really paid attention to Sardinia as like a huge winemaking region. But the wines here are quite diverse. There's so many different types of wines being made here, huge, like very deep viticulture history. So I'm kind of fascinated, curious. Maybe this is a foresight into a separate Sardinia box in the future. But yeah, I was really impressed with the amount of different kind of things that exist here. But anyways, if you look at this, the island's kind of roughly divided to north and south, right? Like you see, there's a big kind of a gap in the middle. There's a northern kind of tip, and then the southern tip. So sorry. Actually, before we get into that, let me give you a little history of Sardinia first. The viticulture history here really dates back all the way to 15th century BC. So it's a long fucking time that there's been making wine here, or at least there's a record of wines being made here, which actually from this one article that I was reading, it makes Sardinia the oldest known site for viticulture in all of Europe, which is pretty wild to think about. Phoenicians introduced the two native vines here to Sardinia, Nuragus and Vernaccia, which now are pretty much small grapes. When you're thinking about Sardinia, you're really talking about two grapes, especially here in US. And even myself, I've only tasted these two grapes from Sardinia, but apparently there are a lot of different varieties that are being made here. But two that we're really talking about is Vermentino and Cannonau. Cannonau is the #1 grape. It's the most well-known wine of Sardinia, obviously. But Vermentino and Cannonau, both of them of Spanish origin. Cannonau is also known as Grenache or Garnacha in Spain and in Spanish. Just like everywhere else in Europe, so Phoenicians brought those two grapes around 1000 BC. The Romans introduced the Moscato and Nasco here, and the Byzantines brought Malvasia here. So it makes for a quite diverse kind of a makeup of all the different kind of wines that are being made here. Just historically, all of that was brought here, but just like everywhere else, the phylloxera kind of decimated the wine industry here in the second half of the 19th century, so the 1800s. And then it almost took a full generation to kind of recover. And today, Sardinia is never back to kind of original kind of a winemaking or viticulture scene that it used to be, but now they're much more focused on high quality. And even back then, they were known for really high quality producing regions. And I was shocked to learn that there are 27 DOCs on the island, as well as 15 IGTs on the island. So Italy has a kind of 4 different levels of wine. So like on the very bottom is basically table wine, like Italian national level table wine. And then above that is IGT, and then above that is DOC, and then above that final level is DOCG. So those are kind of 4 levels of quality in Italy. And then there are 27 DOCs in Sardinia. And then as well as there's one DOCG, which is a Vermentino that comes from the northeastern part of Sardinia, which is, I found it shocking that there were that many DOCs on Sardinia, which I'm embarrassed to admit that I never knew until this month. As you can imagine, this is a completely Mediterranean climate in the middle of the Mediterranean Ocean. Soil here is also super diverse. It's not just a volcanic soil that we thought of that it was going to be. There's some volcanic soil that runs through the middle of the island, and then the mountain that shot up. But there's also pockets of granite on the northeastern corner, and then there's pockets of limestone that also happens on the west. So all that confluence of all the combined factors of the elevation from the mountains, different latitude, right, north and the south, different coast with the mountain dividing in the middle, so different rain amount that comes in, a lot more rain on the west coast than there's on the east coast. Things like that makes for, and then the varying soil type, right, limestone on the left, granite on the top, and the volcanic on the south. All of that makes for a quite interesting area in terms of viticulture. I mentioned this already. Island is divided into kind of two main areas. Northern region, known for their Vermentino. There's a sub-region, winemaking sub-region called Gallura, Gallura. In fact, I'm gonna put that in the chat box if I can find the chat box. Where did the chat box go? Anyways, Gallura. That's the DOCG. So Vermentino di Gallura is the only DOCG on the island. So if you ever come across Vermentino from here, check it out. Very dry, crisp, usually non-oaked. Southern region is known for Cannonau, which is Grenache, which is what we're tasting today. It is by far the most planted grape variety of the island, taking up about the 30% of entire planting across the island is Cannonau. Having said that, if you've ever had Sardinian wine before, I don't know how many of you guys have, but oftentimes, given southern Mediterranean hot, climate, a lot of sunside, especially working with the grapes like Cannonau, which is Grenache, which is known for its kind of it can get pretty hot, like it has a high sugar content. So the wines here tend to be really rich in flavors, really high in alcohol, really well extracted, really well ripe. That's usually the normal style. And as you all know, that's not usually my jam. That's part of the reason why I think I've never really paid much attention to Sardinia until I've come across some other wines. Like even tonight, like this is Cannonau. It is, at least according to the label, is 14.5%. But to me, this doesn't drink like 14.5%. There's an unbelievable amount of elegance, a lot of freshness here, despite it being a 2019, so six-year-old wine, which I find it really charming. So here we are. But beyond Vermentino and Cannonau, there's a wide range of different varieties in Sardinia. So Graffiano, Carignano, those are some of the red varieties. And then for the white varieties, we got Turbado, Malvasia, Vernaccia, Semitano, Nasco, Moscato, Nuragus. So a lot of different native varieties that exist here as well. I've seen Vernaccia in the States, have not tasted it. I've never seen Moscato or Malvasia, but I'm really interested. But the only thing I've really only tasted from Sardinia is Cannonau and Vermentino, which are the two most famous grape varieties here. As you may have inferred from the names of those grape varieties, Sardinia owes a lot of debt to Spain for a lot of their varieties, right? Talking about Cannonau, Garnacha, Graffiano, Carignano, these are all Spanish varieties. Even Vermentino, which is Spanish in origin. So yeah, a lot of different Spanish varieties. It's no surprise that it's because the Spanish kingdom of Aragon ruled Sardinia until the early 1700s for a period of nearly 400 years. So it makes complete amount of sense why there's a lot of Spanish influence here in terms of viticulture. But not only do we see Spanish varieties abundant, but also stylistically, particularly the historic style, and these are the ones that I really want to hunt down and taste. But I've never even heard of these until this month. Those Malvasia that I was talking about, the Malvasia and Vernaccia, They are sometimes produced in this very oxidative style, almost reminiscent of Spanish sherries. So I've never had that style of wine coming from Sardinia, and now I really want to taste it. So if any of you ever come across Vernaccia or Malvasia from Sardinia that's made in a sherry-like oxidative style, let me know because I would love to get my hands on it and taste it. But like I mentioned, the number one wine of Sardinia is definitely Cannonau, which is what we're tasting today. 30% of oil island's planting is planted to Cannonau, like I mentioned. But yeah, usually, generally high in alcohol, low in acidity, really jammy, really big, but not today because that's not kind of stuff that I like to drink. This particular winery that we're talking about, or the owner, Osvaldo Soddu, he is in the small town of Mamoira, with a population of 2,500. He's kind of in the center of the island. And nearly everyone here has been making wine for personal consumption for centuries. And then apparently there's really no mechanization, really kind of a stuck in time, time capsule kind of a town where oxen are still used to plow the vineyards and the farmlands. And then everybody is not, there's not much of commercial winemaking here. Most of it, everybody just kind of makes wine for themselves and their families and friends and neighbors. And it's been that way for centuries, which is kind of cool. All right, let's talk about who makes this wine. Oh, I didn't pull it up. Sorry, 1 second. All right, come on. All right, here we go. So this is Osvaldo Soddu. Pretty young guy. Not formally trained winemaker. In fact, he kind of grew up without thinking much about viticulture or winemaking or any of that. Grew up in Sardinia in a family involved in more in sheep farming than viticulture. He grew up not really caring much about any of it, but later on he actually inherited about hectare, 1.5 hectare of land planted to a abandoned kind of 80-year-old vines, and he started kind of tending to it, and that's when he discovered his kind of a passion for farming and winemaking. So he started planting new vines, remodeled the old country house, built his cellar, did all of it just kind of himself, trying to bring it back to the way I guess his grandfather planted the vines, and his father owned them, but didn't really do much. They were doing different kind of farming, like sheep farming, and didn't really pay much attention to the grapes. But then he came back, and he's the first one in his family to really kind of bring it back into what it was. His first harvest, he was again working as a farmer, working in different, not viticulture, but he kind of in his spare time, he remodeled all those things, started learning about how to make wine, how to farm wines. His first few harvests were really rewarding to him, so he decided that he was gonna start as a commercial bottling, and he bottled his first vintage in 2019. So this is his very first vintage that we're talking about, that he commercial vintage, I should say. So he's had a few private vintage that he didn't sell to winery, but we're talking about very first vintage that he bottled himself to commercially make it available, and that's what we have here, 2019. His entire production is only about 5,000 bottles. He makes rosé, red, and Reserva Cannonau. So the only thing he farms is a Cannonau. But I mean, 5,000 bottles, as you can imagine, is nothing. There's nothing really, like, I don't know how he makes living with 5,000 bottles, but maybe, you know, living in a small town of 2,500 in the middle of Sardinia, you don't need that much. But yeah, so very, very small bottling. In fact, it would be hard to find this almost anywhere just because, you know, it's just too small for most people to import it in. Like, imagine his entire production split across red, rosé, and Reserva is 5,000 bottles. Most importers would not even think about bringing it in because that's just too small. But this particular importer that I work with, Doria Wines, is a it's a local Italian brother and sister team that brings in these like really small scale kind of wines that most you won't be able to find through anyone else. And then we are lucky enough to get our hands on some of this stuff. Um, anyways, let me show you some pictures. These are pictures that actually Christina Doria and her brother Tim Doria actually brought sent to me himself. Here's Osvaldo himself picking the grapes. And so this is his home slash winery back here. This is actually the rows of Cannonau that's grown right next door, right next to his winery and cellar. This is his Christina's brother, so one of the importers, one half of the importing team. This is what the town looks like from the outside, or from his where his vineyards are. Let's see. This is actual grapes of Cannonau, Grenache. Oh, I thought I had one more picture, but apparently he also built a tree house as his tasting room. So if you actually go there to visit him, he will lay out all the cheese and charcuterie and the things that either he has made himself or someone in his town has made, or his neighbors have made, and laid it all out. And you got the tasting experience is one of his kind. Looking at that view that I showed you here, that view. And tasting through his wines on this little treehouse that he himself built on the island, on the property. So I don't know. It makes me really want to go to Sardinia and track him down because that sounds fun. Anyways, so that's what we got. All right, what is this wine? It's 100% bush vine trained, 25-year-old Cannonau grown on granite at about 2,000 feet in elevation. Native fermentation. 14 days on skin contact without temperature control in open top vats. So what does that all mean? I was actually surprised that this was not temperature control at all. This is very traditional, essentially. The open top vat is essentially gigantic fermenting vessel, oftentimes made out of wood. And then there's a cap on it. There's no top on it. So pretty much any kind of wild yeast and anything can get in there. It's like a sour beer making, essentially, if you're familiar with that process. And none of it is temperature controlled. So yeah, it's a very, very traditional, old, natural way of making wine. And considering how kind of clean this wine is, and how much of the aromatics are still here, I was surprised that this was all non-temperature controlled and open vats. But yeah, I like it. Age for a year after the fermentation is done in the gigantic open top vats. The age in a year in a 300-liter old chestnut barrel. So he doesn't use oak, but he uses chestnut. But 2019 was the last year. So his first vintages, first few non-commercial vintages, as well as the first commercial vintage, he made them in a chestnut barrels. But apparently starting with 2020, he moved to oak barrels, neutral oak barrels. And apparently Christina and Tim both tasted the wines, told him that the chestnut barrel wines are much better, that he should go back to it, but he refused to do so because he's kind of this of an artist who believes his vision for his wines, and he likes it with oak, not with chestnut. But I haven't tasted the oak one, but so if you ever go back, if you like this wine, and you have to find this somewhere else with the later vintages, know that it's done with the oak, and it's probably going to taste a little bit different than chestnut. Given that they're all neutral, so we're not talking about new oak, new chestnut. So it's not imparting huge oak, like a wood flavors, but nonetheless, you can tell the difference. So yeah, just know that it's going to taste different coming with 2020. So you're tasting the first and last commercial vintage of Osvaldo Soddu Cannonau, done in chestnut. Let's see. Yeah, bottled, unfiltered, unfined, with just a touch of sulfites at the end. That's what we got. Any questions about anything I just went over before we get into tasting the wine? Cool. Let's taste the wine. Who wants to take the appearance? Somebody.
We'll do it.
All right. Oh, it's like a father and daughter combo today, huh?
Lisa's here too.
All right.
Right.
Everybody's here.
Yeah.
Dig it.
So your grid's too big. I can't read it.
Oh, maybe that was me. I did that.
Oh, okay. Hold
Yeah, I was
on.
like, it's too big.
Oh, you enlarged it
You're
too
looking
much.
at the map. That
Okay.
was why I was looking at the
Okay. Clarity. I'm looking at it. It's a little hazy.
Yeah. You can tell this wine is not filter or fine, but yeah,
Right, but you can see through it, but it's
Yeah.
got a little haze to it.
for intents and purposes, I would still call this clear, but yeah, I would definitely say that this is not filtered.
Yeah, not faulty. Intensity, I would say this is a medium, maybe medium
Yeah,
intensity.
it's like a lower in the medium minus perhaps. Yeah, it's not super dark. Like I can still see all the letters through mine. But there's some color here, so I'll call this about medium minus, lower in the medium. Somewhere between pale and medium is what I call this.
So, and the consensus here that this is a garnet color.
I won't go full on garnet, but there's definitely some garnet coming in. You can tell that this used to be ruby, and there's some of this kind of brown, there's some amber color starting to come in here. Yeah, so excellent call. Yeah, I wouldn't call this a ruby. It's definitely ruby, some garnet coming in. Again, 2019, some age on it. It's starting to show already, but not fully garnet.
So would this would be not tawny? Tawny would be darker than this?
Tawny will be much darker than that. Yeah.
He's saying it's ruby still.
Ruby still.
Yeah,
ruby.
I would still call this ruby where the garnet starting to kick in. So like, you can definitely see some of that brown, some of that like brickish brown kind of kicking in here. But yeah, for intents and purposes, I'll still call this ruby, ruby with garnet. But another thing that I want to mention, and I said this, we talked about this last week, which is with the older wines. I don't remember who was asking about tannin and the color pigmentation and all of that. Or with the aging. So when you age the wine, the tannin usually binds with the anthocyanin, which is the polyphenolic compound that's responsible for giving wines red color, the ruby color. Those bind and they usually precipitate out. And as a result of that, usually not one, do you also get the intensity of the color go down, but also two, oftentimes you see a variation in color going from the very core of the wine glass towards the rim, or what they call meniscus. And I definitely start to see that in this wine. I wouldn't say it's fully there yet. If you ever come across like a 20, 30-year-old wines, you will see this very dramatic color difference between the core to the rim. And also as you go to the very rim, the meniscus kind of becomes watery clear. But I can already kind of see, particularly around the rim, like it's starting to drop off a lot of color on this thing. And then the very core to going to that rim, it's almost like 3 different parts of color. Like right in the middle of the wine is to me the most ruby. And then as you go towards the rim, you see more garnet coming in and you see this kind of watery rim on it. So which is just a sign. Usually just by looking at the wine, you can kind of get a sense that this wine has been aged or it's got some age on it. Any other observations?
No, I think that's it. There's no.
Yep, no sediment, no bubbles, nothing else to me. Excellent, excellent. You get to pick the next person for the nose.
Who do you want, Liz?
Todd.
Oh, Todd, are you ready to hop on the tasting?
There we go. Okay.
Let's do it.
What's interesting for me is I'm getting almost a Christmas kind of smell, for lack of a better
What do you
word.
mean? Like pine tree or?
Not a cinnamon, I'm getting just like Christmas blend smell. It's just like
Okay, some sort of spice. Okay, yeah.
something like that.
I mean,
yeah.
makes sense.
But I
This
can't
has seemed
describe
like, yeah, this has seemed some sort of chestnut, but yeah, let's start from the condition from the top.
it.
Is
Yep.
wine is, what do you think?
Well, fairly clean, I think.
Yeah, this one is clean. This one is sound. I will also mention though, however, you can tell by just smelling it that this is not like squeaky clean, lab clean wine. You can tell there's some rusticity here. It's made in somebody's probably like a farm, which is exactly where this is made. Open top vat again. It's not like a fully controlled kind of a setting, made in a stainless steel tank kind of a thing. So clean, but all for intents and purposes, I call it clean and sound, but you can kind of tell there's certain rusticity to the wine. Intensity.
I'm gonna go medium to medium minus.
Yeah. Start moving the wine, give it a little swirl, start moving it toward your nose, see where you start smelling. I'm like right here. Which is like what, 2 inches off the glass? Yeah, I'm like right here.
Okay.
So, I mean, so the whole thing is if your nose touches, like when you start smelling the wine, when your nose touches the rim or just above the rim, that's about medium. Medium minus is like you stick the nose in the glass, you're still kind of struggling to get it. That's like medium minus. Light is like, you don't really smell much at all. Medium plus is a couple inches, 2 to 3 inches off the glass. Pronounced is even further than that, essentially. It's a way to think about it. Obviously, the temperature of the wine, the shape of the wine glass, all these things matter, or they contribute. But in general, that's kind of way to think about it. And for me, and I don't even have like the best wine glass. These are like just whatever wine glass, but like I'm like here, which is pretty far. It's like 2 to 3 inches. So I'm gonna call this medium plus. It's quite aromatic. Okay.
I said the smell's not the best, so.
All right. What do you smell? Do you get any floral?
Like I said, I'm really hitting that spice, which is, I don't want to say overpowering, but that's what I'm smelling.
Okay. We'll get there. We'll get to the spices, which is mostly in the secondary. But let's start with some primary here. Do you get any floral vibe? Scent?
Possibly.
Yeah, it's not super floral wine. You could maybe convince me there's some like rose petals, red petals, but like it's not fresh either. It's kind of like a drying out. Those like a dried out rose petals that they like sell. Like there's some of that going on here, but not hugely floral, but some of it. Any green fruit, citrus, stone, tropical, any of this stuff?
I don't think so.
Yeah, these are usually reserved mostly for white wines, not for red wines, but not to say that you can't get it, but yeah. Red fruit, black fruit, what do you got?
I'm leaning more black than red. But like I said, I'm having troubles.
To me, there's definitely some black here. I'm just given how hot it is here, warm, particularly Grenache grown in a warm climate, tends to get some of that brambly kind of black fruit thrown in there. But in general, Grenache tends to give it's much more like a red fruit driven thing. So to me, there's definitely some like raspberry, red plum. To me, this is more of like a red plummy, red cherry, not more of like a berry thing. But definitely black fruit too. Like there's definitely some like bramble. There's some black currant.
I can't get the plum.
Yeah, but to me, this is more of like a red plum, red cherry.
Okay.
There's some really like ripe strawberry here as well for me. Yeah. Nature of the fruit. Is it fresh? Is it cooked? Is it dried? Is it underripe? Is it overripe? What do you think?
I would say it's fairly ripe.
Yeah, it's very ripe.
Yeah.
So there's nothing underripe about this wine.
Right.
And again, this is a Mediterranean, very warm climate, a ton of sunlight. They do not struggle. The challenge is not ripening the grapes. Really ripe, maybe even over. I wouldn't go as far as overripe. If anything, if I had to go towards either underripe, overripe, I go towards overripe. But I don't think this is overripe. Like the fruit just seems really, really ripe here. I do get some fresh fruit here, but I also do get some of that kind of cooked fruit. Some of that. There's some also like the fruit character some of it start to dry out a little bit here as well. So it's not just one character of fruit. Like I'm starting to get kind of that tertiary, some of that like fruit when they're starting to kind of raisin out, some of it is starting to kind of cooked jamming kind of thing going on here as well. Any non-fruit thing, herbaceous, herbal, spice?
I guess I'm getting a spice. I wouldn't say non-gold.
Yeah. What I think what you are talking about is more of here, and this is most for oak, but again, it could apply for any kind of a vessel that it was aged
Okay.
in. But this more for herbaceous, we're talking about like underripe tones, like
Right.
green, vegetal. Is there anything like that for you?
No.
Is there any like herbal thing?
Not particularly.
Yeah, me neither. There's nothing kind of like, there's nothing green about this wine. Everything's really ripe. Phenolically speaking, fruit, aroma speaking, everything's really, really ripe. Herbal, you could convince me maybe there's a little bit of like fennelly, kind of like some sort of like a herbal thing going on, maybe touch of it. Maybe again, there's a shrubs that grow here everywhere on this island. So maybe some of that, but not super strong. Any spice, any like peppers? Maybe this licorice is kind of what I'm thinking about, but there's something little savory besides the fruit here.
Yeah, I just can't put my finger on it, but
Yeah. Do you get any rockiness here?
I do. Actually.
I do. Yeah, I do too. Name kind of the rock. Do you get like whetstone, crushed rocks, flint, like smoky flint? What do you think?
Any
Or dirt?
lime,
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
any lime or anything like that?
Like a
Lime-
limestone?
Like limestone or anything? Or
Yeah. This is not grown on limestone. This is on granite,
Okay.
but there's definitely some like a rockiness here. For me, it's like a crushed rock. For me, this like comes off as like a rock pebbles. If you're like walking through like a
Okay.
pebbly, rocky kind of a pavement, like all the dust that would come up, like there's some of that going on here as well. Cool. Let's get to secondary, and I think this is where you were catching a lot of this as well.
right.
Again, this is mostly for oak and this is for new oak, but again, I just call out whatever you were thinking. So for you, you said it was Christmas. So tell me.
Yeah, so maybe a cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon combination or something.
Spices, yeah. Yeah, I can totally see that. Again, this is to me, this is like a code word that fucking wine people use with each other to like tell each other like there's new oak on this wine. Does it actually really? I mean, vanillin. Some of the American oak particularly has some vanillin in it. Cloves and nutmeg, these things can come out, but it's less of that. Like to me, it's clear there's some wood influence on this wine, and oftentimes that is associated with a lot of that kind of like spices, that kind of warming spices, baking spices. But yeah, again, it's different from oak, but you can tell that there's
Now,
some
this-
sort
this-
of
Wasn't this one done in the beechwood?
chestnut.
Chestnut, excuse me, chestnut.
Yeah. So
What does
different.
what does that taste like?
So not much. There's no grid that talks about chestnut. Especially, I don't know anybody who's new chestnut, which is weird. Yeah, I've never had any wine that's oaked in a new chestnut. I've had new acacia, but yeah, I don't think I've ever heard new chestnut. So I couldn't personally tell you what it tastes like, but to me, regardless of what wood you use, oak, chestnut, beech. I don't think I've ever heard beech, but acacia. There's actual wood flavor that gets imparted into the wine, but even in neutral oak, there's a neutral wooden vessel. There's usually some sort of wooden touch that to me that comes off, and to me, this wine definitely has all of that. Like you can tell this wine, like this was not made in like a inert stainless steel kind of environment. Yeah, so that what you were saying about cloves and nutmeg, I think I wouldn't call it that personally. Like to me, it doesn't come off as like a baking spices, but there's definitely wood evidence.
Yeah, it's something I'm getting.
Yeah, and we'll go with that. Any tertiary here?
I don't think so, no.
I'm starting to pick up some here.
Okay.
So even this is what I was referring to. So the fruit character is starting to dry out here. There's still a ton of fresh fruit here. I don't think, don't get me wrong, that I don't think this wine is tired in any way or over the peak, but some of the plums and all those things I'm telling you about, which is what prune is, which is dried plums, you're starting to see some of that fruit starting to dry out. So I'm getting, and this is part of the reason, this is also lesson in why you would want to age wine, right? Like when wine is fresh and young, you get nothing but kind of fresh plum and fresh fruit. And then as wine ages, you get some of these figs and prunes and dried out fruit. And so now you get both of them, increasing the complexity of the wine. I wouldn't go as far as if you age this wine longer, the more of this fig and prune, all this will come out. And most likely you're going to start to see, oh, here you go, cooked red plum. This is something that I'm definitely getting on this wine. So I says there's some like drying out, some of that jammy kind of thing happening. And I think that's all tertiary that's starting to kick in here. And then as this wine ages more, those primary fruit that you mentioned, Todd, will turn and dry out a little bit further, as well as you're going to start to see some of these non-fruit things. Once it dries out, then it will get to even more of this, where it will start to develop the non-fruit flavor. So you'll probably start picking up some meaty, mushroomy, kind of a leathery kind of thing picking up here as time goes on. Also, I don't know why this just came to me, going back to it earlier. Remember, I was saying that I get some like herbal, something savory here, but not necessarily like, couldn't put my finger, I called it licorice, but I get like a little hint of tobacco. Not green tobacco. I'm getting like a little dried, like a dried out tobacco. And then I think that may also be here in the tertiary. So you're starting to see some tertiary kick in on this wine, which is cool. All right, anything else, Todd?
That's pretty much it for me.
Cool.
Yep, thank you.
Good job on your very first turn. It gets better as time goes. All right, you get to pick the next person for the palette.
Oh, geez. Any volunteers? Julia?
Julia.
Okay, I just I just ate like a peanut butter chocolate brownie, so we'll see.
Sorry.
Not your fault. It's not your fault, Todd. It was my fault. It was my fault.
It's a real palate cleanser.
Yes. Okay. I mean, I can tell you this wine is dry.
Bone dry. Still a lot of fruit, but dry.
It's, I mean, it's got some acidity to it, like
Yeah. It's like high and
medium.
medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call this medium, higher than medium. Yeah, exactly what you said. In general, Grenache is not a very high acidic grape, high acid grape. When it's grown in a cooler climate, it can get a little bit higher, but particularly when it's grown in a hot, warm climate like this, you're rarely ever going to get it up to medium plus. If you ever get Grenache from like particularly places like California, Australia, or some places, and it's like ripping, like screaming high in acid, like you should be suspicious. Like though that wine probably got acidified at one point, like got manipulated to make it taste that way. But the fact that, and again, this is because I've tasted Cannonau in the past, but if you're familiar with a lot of Cannonau from the island, from Sardegna, this is as fresh and high acid as it gets. Oftentimes it's much riper, much bigger, even lower in acid and all of that. So here we go. Tannin.
Got some tannin. Say again, like maybe high end to medium. It's like a pretty fine grain tannin. Like it's not too bad, but it's there.
Yep, definitely tannin. Yeah, I feel it. Oh yeah, it's coating all of my teeth. Yeah, I'm gonna call this about, yeah, like you said, medium, higher than medium is what I call this as well. Very fine grain. Excellent. Alcohol.
It
I mean,
tastes a little heavy to me.
We've already said that it's 14 and a half.
Yeah.
I will say like when I first smelled it, it smelled hot. And like it doesn't anymore, but like drinking it, it doesn't, I don't know. I would have probably guessed like 14, something like that.
Mhm. That's what I'm saying. Like, this does not drink like 14.5 to me. There's if you like sit with it for a while, you can feel a little bit of warmth coming
Yeah,
down.
exactly. Yeah.
But like most wines that you clock in at 14.5 are either going to be, you're going to feel it, right? Like you're going to feel it right away, the warmth that kicks up. Or two, in order to make that 14.5 in balance with the rest, the wine itself has to be bold. Like it's got to be pretty
Yeah.
big. You know,
Right.
it's got to have some structure, it's got to have some extraction, power, body, and intensity. But like to me, I mean, this wine does not lack intensity, but it is like so much lighter on its feet. Like it's still, it's got the 14.5, like how that 14.5 stays in balance with this kind of like elegance is magical to me. It's like it's magic. Like how this winemaker was able to achieve this is unbelievable to me. But to your point, this does not taste like 14.5. This does not drink like 14.5. Even though you can feel the warmth like immediately going down, but it doesn't seem off balance. And a lot of that is because there's a intensity here, and there's a lot of that kind of different complexity that are going on here as well. But yeah, it's quite cool. So 14.5, that would squarely put us in a medium plus, but you can make a side note saying that is perfectly in balance.
Right.
Body.
I mean, it's like it's medium,
At
like
least, right?
yeah,
Yeah, it's
medium
got
plus.
some weight. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like,
Like,
towards
I feel like
again.
it's like it's tricky me a little bit because of like the color and the sort of like flavor profile makes it like feel light, but I know
Yeah.
it's not, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So this is like, and this is the kind of the tricky part and the beauty of Grenache. So Grenache, when it's youthful, young, especially in a little bit cooler climate, it almost like if you got it blind with Pinot, sometimes you can get it confused, even though they're two complete different grapes. Um, Grenache can go from that all the way to somewhere in the middle like this, or somewhere all the way to the right where it gets fucking bold. Like Chateauneuf du Pape is Grenache.
Right.
That is fucking big, punch you in the face, bold kind of wine. And it can range that, it can stretch that range. So, and oftentimes looking at a bottles like this, where like you were saying, Julia, like the color seems light. Doesn't seem like this would be a really heavy wine, but then you get into it and you're like, holy shit, like this big alcohol, big flavors, and a lot of it, which confuses people. But body wise, with a wine that's 14.5, you're rarely ever going to go below medium. It's just not possible. Amount of sugar and alcohol that's developed there. So yeah, I'm going to call this again right at the higher end of medium, lower than medium plus. Like it's got some weight for sure. Yeah, this is definitely getting into medium plus territory for me.
Yeah.
No mousse, obviously. Flavor intensity.
I mean, medium plus.
Yeah, agreed. This wine does not lack any intensity, I'll tell you that. Both in terms of nose and the palate. Like I think to me it does come off even stronger on the nose than it does on the palate, but I wouldn't call this, I'll call this like lower than medium plus, higher than medium. It's kind of where we are. All right. What do you taste? Do you confirm everything that Todd called out? Are there some other things that pop out for you?
I mean, I got a lot of like pomegranate when I was
Yeah.
first it. And like a lot of those like the red fruits.
Yeah. Agreed. I
Yeah.
think pomegranate is actually an excellent call. But like to me, this is not like a fresh pomegranate. It's like that, I don't know, pomegranate.
Yeah, it's like pomegranate foods. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
the weird bottle. Like, yeah.
Anything else? So we call that little like dried out rose petals. So you're calling out some pomegranate, I call out some red plum, red cherry kind of thing, some black fruit as well.
I do get some of the crushed rock as well.
Yeah, definitely some minerality running through here for sure. We got some. This is really interesting to me on this wine, the
Yeah.
nature of the fruit.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you get kind of like one noted fruit? Do you get different kind, different characters?
I mean, I do get like maybe like just like a hint of a fig, right, or a prune, like that like dried
but I
fruit.
think it's like you also get fresh fruit. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
and some raisin, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I think it's still like 90% fresh
Yeah,
fruit.
yeah.
It's just starting to raisin, like that little bit is what I'm getting here. So, which is cool. Any other herbaceous, herbal? You got what crushed rocks you mentioned? Anything here?
Not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah, neither. Again, I call that like tobacco-y kind of a thing, but I think that's more a function of a tertiary than this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Any secondary, any tertiary? Todd was talking about like a Christmas thing for him. Do you get like some of the spice or some sort of evidence of wood use? Any tertiary?
I do feel like I get a little bit of a spice at the
Yeah.
very
Mhm.
end.
Like some
Yeah.
cloves or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Agreed. For sure. I actually think that now that I'm tasting it on the palate, I actually do think, Todd, your call of this kind of like a nutmeg clove, some of the spice thing is actually
Yeah.
much more accurate. Any tertiary?
I mean, yeah, we get some of the like dried fruit that we talked about.
Yeah,
Yeah, just a little bit though. Like it's hard to
exactly. It's
predict.
just starting to show through. I don't think, like, I'm not saying this is like perfectly mature, but it's like just tertiary, just starting to peek its head through. So yeah, I definitely get some like this dried fruit, prunes, this cooked red plum. I do get a little bit of tobacco just peeking through, not like fully there. Give this a little more time. Like a lot of this more is going to kick in. Primaries are going to change that. So now you're going to have both of them at its peak. That's at the peak of this wine. Like that's where you're trying to get it to. But right now, yeah, it's starting to show just a little bit of this. But yeah, still for all intents and purposes, even including the secondary, this is still very much primary, still very fresh, still a lot of fresh fruit left on here. Finish. How long is the finish?
One more wine.
It's at least medium plus. It's fairly long to me.
Julia?
Yeah. It's got some length.
Yeah, I don't, quite frankly, only thing about this wine that I was like, why? I don't understand why this, like, I feel like the length on this thing should be longer. It's like, it's not squarely medium plus territory for me. This is like high, medium, lower, medium plus. I could go either way. Also, the alcohol, the hotness of the alcohol, the 14.5 is where it really kicks in, like at the end of the finish.
Yeah.
The back end of the finish is where I get a lot of really. But yeah, being generous, we'll call it a medium plus, but this is like right in the medium to medium plus territory, not squarely in medium plus. Like to me, this intensity on nose is like squarely medium plus. Intensity on the palate was somewhere between medium plus, same thing. Finish was like the medium plus.
Yeah.
Cool. Bring it home for us. How good is this wine? And would you age it?
It's good to very good.
Talk about it. Balanced?
Balanced.
Concentration?
That has medium plus on the nose, medium to medium plus on the palate.
Yep.
Complexity, we called out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a bit of things, right? Primary, secondary, tertiary, starting to show through.
Yeah.
What would you call that?
So that would be very good.
So it'd be medium plus, and then length, we called it medium to medium plus as well. So everything's kind of in that medium to medium plus, with a few medium pluses throwing in, complexity being medium plus. So yeah, I'll call this very good myself. Would you age this?
I think so. I think like we're seeing like hints of like secondary and tertiary. And it's not good because of the fresh fruit, right? Like it's good because like a mix of stuff, you would want to see more of those tertiary flavors come through, I would assume. I don't know how long, like 5 more years? I don't know.
That's the tricky one. And there are definitely wines in Sardinia that, particularly Cannonau, can age much longer. But inferring from the fact that this is 6 years old and then like the tertiary is just starting to come through, right? It's not even like fully there yet. I say, and then given that we call this what? Borderline medium plus tannin, right? It has a decent acid. It's medium. It's not crazy, but has good tannin. I would say, yeah, exactly. At least another 5 years, probably longer to tell the truth. I would say can easily go up to 8 years, 5 to 8. I think at 5 years, you could probably see more tertiary come in. My guess would be around 5 year mark, this is gonna try to hit the peak. 5 to 8 is gonna hit peak. So yeah, I would say I think it's drinking beautifully now. I do like the wine now, but if you want to see more of that tertiary, more of that kind of like dried fruit, more of that tobacco, kind of a different savory kind of elements come in, then age it longer to 5. Come check back in 5 years, and check back in again in 7 years, just to see where it goes. But if you like it where it is now, I think it's perfectly fine to drink right now, is what I would say. But yeah, your call of 5 to 8 years, I think is an excellent call. Right. Any disagreements? Good job, by the way, everyone. Any questions? This one is a little tough one to taste through, just because we haven't had wine like this in a while, and two, particularly like aged Grenache is one of the, even in the wine world, even amongst the wine people, Grenache is this one variety that really like tricks people up, because it can wear so many different masks depending where it's grown, how it's treated. But yeah. Anyways, good job, everyone. Any questions? Any disagreements?
I definitely get fennel on the palate.
You got a little fennel? Yeah. I was thinking that,
It
but I
comes
went
it comes
with
across
I
as
changed it to that.
licoricey, but I don't think it's licorice. I think it's fennel.
Okay. Yeah.
I get a little leather
Yeah.
on the palate, like like an old Western saddle leather.
No, totally. There's definitely some
Because
tertiary
if you
stuff
say
to
it's
pick up.
leather, you may as well say something even douchier than that.
Yeah, so I called it fennel earlier, and I ended up switching it to tobacco, not green tobacco, like dry tobacco. But like now hearing your call and tasting it again, power suggestion perhaps. But yeah, maybe it's like fennel and leather is kind of like, I think those are perfectly great calls. But I think what we're agreeing is that there's definitely some tertiary shining on this one.
So I'm pretty sure this is last week. There was like something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It's like I think there's an ester in this wine that's giving it like a little high tone fruit on the nose. Like it's kind of like very like rich plumminess, but it's also got a little like high tone. Has anyone ever had those candies that look like red and black raspberries, and they're like very aromatic? They're like a jelly in the middle with like little dots around them. They look like raspberries. They only sell them at like random shops that go into business so they can make no money. Like I don't know where you would buy those, but it kind of has like that, and it's on the palate. It's like almost got kind of like a little bit of like a chemically thing, but it's not like an astringent chemical. It's like a round, rich chemical that's kind of like a candy like I can't quite describe it, but the wine
Yeah.
last week had it too.
So the high tone part, I actually talked about this with the importer, and then so importer was telling me that Osvaldo was telling them that this is a very unusual, it's a very different kind of Cannonau. And I was like, what did he mean by that? Like, what do you mean? And he was just saying it just stylistically, it's just very different. It's not what you would find in Cannonau. And then so I asked, it's like, is it more of the fact that it's lighter in terms of on his feet, like not the alcohol wise, but it's just this just the flavor wise, or is the fact because I think the fact that this was made in open top, there's certain like level of wild kind of like a almost like a sour beer kind of nature kind of to it. There's some other flavors that are on there. I don't want to go all the way as far as calling it VA because I don't necessarily get huge VA on this thing.
Yeah.
The fruit character is like almost like a, you know, we talked about like apples falling on the ground on orchards and starts to ferment, like that cidery kind of thing. That like there's some of that going on here. Like there's some of that fruit that is just kind of fermented wild, just started fermenting wildly on its own. And I don't know that that's what you and I are talking about the same thing here or not, but like there's some of that going on here for me.
Yeah, and I think the reason I'm having a tough time putting my finger on it is like it's like it is. I mean, there is a lot of complexity. Like so, like I pulled up a picture. It's like it's these things. These are like these little candies, but those candies, the candies don't smell like fruit. They smell kind of floral, but it's like a fruity floral. So like crushed rose petal is like for sure in the mix, but it's like not just that. There's like some, I don't know. I feel like every time you're like, I mean, there's some of the notes you're like, yeah, absolutely. But then some of them like you put your finger on it and then like it moves a little bit because it's connected to something else. I think it's honestly like a pretty complex wine.
I mean, it is. There's a lot going on.
It's pretty interesting. Like it's a little bit inscrutable, so kind of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had a question. So the alcohol is high, right? Like it's medium plus alcohol. It doesn't drink like that. So in an exam setting, is the right answer medium or is it medium plus?
No, you want to call it the medium plus, depending on the actual alcohol, because they want you to be able to discern that. But there's a section that you can also write comments in. Usually, if you're writing on it, where you're saying this is still, despite being 14.5, it feels perfectly balanced for this reason or that reason or whatever.
But probably what most people do is they just write medium and then they say it's 13 because it doesn't drink like 14.5, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with acid, right? Like sometimes, and then, but acid is like, that's actually more almost a fraud than alcohol. Like alcohol, you wanted to call out by the actual percentage, like how high it is. But with the acid, it's almost like there's no comment section. It's basically like they want to, or a sugar level. Sorry, a sugar level, because there's no 0.9 grams is dry, 10 to 18 is off dry. It's not like that. Like so, perceptively speaking, if you are having 9 grams of sugar in a fucking Mosel Riesling versus 9 grams of sugar in a Viognier, they're gonna drink two completely different. The experience is completely different.
Okay, last question, I promise. Is this whole cluster fermented?
There is a whole cluster, yes.
I got like a tiny bit of phenolic bitterness on the palate, but not on the nose.
Okay. I mean, you can get phenolic bitterness on the nose. You can get phenolic.
Sure. But like it tastes like it got fermented on stems.
Yeah. It's definitely got some stems, yeah, for sure.
This is a good wine, man.
It's cool wine. I mean,
your picks this month are super solid.
Thanks, Charles, first of all. But two, what I like about this wine, and again, just out of curiosity, how many of you guys had Cannonau de Sardegna before? Or just Sardegna wine before? Yeah, Charles, definitely. But okay.
Come on. No one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, but like it's to me, it's shocking to me again, I'm embarrassed to admit that I haven't really known much about Sardinia wine at all. In 10 plus years of working in wine, I just never pay attention to it. But like how diverse it is and how much like quality is there. But quite frankly, this like if you think the Cannonau Sardinia is gonna taste like this everywhere you go, it's not that. Like this is a very unusual thing. It's gonna be much richer, much bigger, much just punch you in the face kind of style of what I've tasted in the past. So that's part of the reason why I put this in there. It's just like it's heavy, it's big, it's a lot of alcohol, but the flavor wise, it just moves so light on its feet, which is awesome. It's Grenache, people. Like, I'm also want to put together like a Grenache box. I think Grenache box would be fun. Anyways,
awesome.
Yeah. Let's play your favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much would you be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? 6 years old, right? It's already been aged at the cellar for 6 years before release. We called it very good with another yet still 5 to 8 year potential to go. Yeah. How much do you think this will be? And I know that not many people have had Sardinia wine, so probably no reference point, but all right, 28.50, 27. Remember, we also talked about how much like quality there is on this island. Also, very, very tiny operation. So there's no like economy scale here. 28.50, 27, 28.35. All right, Sara. 27.30, 33. Okay. All right, Mr. Dahan. I know you want to get in on this conversation. You always do. Or maybe not. Okay. This wine in the retail shelf would be $36. So, yeah, this is the most expensive one in the box this month.
So we're just so used to getting your amazing deals. You know, you buy it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you just gotta, you know, if first of all, if there's any industry where I think the price is no indicator of the quality, wine is definitely one of them. But sometimes I don't know if it's the economy scale thing or whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. I think this is a pretty fucking unbelievable wine for $36. Honestly.
Yeah, I agree. This is pretty excellent, man.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting this. I was like frying a cheeseburger in the background. I'm like, holy shit. Like this is good.
For this same money, you could get a half bottle of Benton Lane Pinot Noir.
Also, just thinking like he makes 5,000 bottles. So if he makes $5 of profit on each bottle, which he probably doesn't, that's only $25,000.
Yeah. I mean, given $25,000 in Sardinia, I don't know the economy of Sardinia, but Sardinia, when a town of 2,500 people, I would imagine that it goes a lot farther than we think. But still, yeah, you're totally right. Like we're talking about very, very small amount of money. But yeah, that's what we have. Any questions?
Just a comment. I think Todd's earlier comment about Christmas. This was like Christmas is spot on.
Yeah.
You ever
Spices.
been born into or dated someone who's really into Christmas? Like bougie Christmas? Like this is exactly like not the Walmart Christmas candle that
Not like sleeping in a manger Christmas.
No. You're walking into high-end retail Christmas.
We didn't talk about this, but besides the grid, identifying, trying to dissect each flavors and all of that, and things that they don't talk about on the grid. What I was really impressed with this wine was just a texture, like the mouthfeel of this wine. It's very silky smooth. Like there's certain, like all the edges have been taken out. It's just like a hug of your tongue. That sounds really, really terrible, but
Boone, I had a question about when you mentioned, like these other Grenaches that are not going to have like a lot of acid, and that sometimes winemakers will acidify wine. Is that like that's a thing that happens?
Oh, that's pretty much every wine that you see on a grocery shelf. That's either
Okay.
been acidified or de-acidified.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
What
a
is that?
very
Like, what is that? What are those processes? Like, what are those? Like, what is that? What does that process look like?
acidification is usually a citric acid, literally dumping,
Oh, wow.
like shoveling citric acid into
Oh,
fucking
wow.
wine. De-acidification is a little more complicated. There's a little more chemistry, but yeah, it's basically denaturing it out. So yeah, you get a more basic substance to put in there to raise the pH level and all of that. Yeah.
Woong, you should talk more about the flip side of like our wine club, like about what stuff people do to want, like
Yeah.
like
what is the most processed wine, or like what are
man.
like the
Oh.
most processes that you can like throw into wine?
So like
a lot of stuff.
Bruncu Wine Company, which are the people who make 2 Buck Chuck. They make a lot of other things. They're like a custom crush.
They also make Broncos, like for the Ford Broncos as well, or
No, no, they're just coincidentally also called Bruncu Company, but it's not owned by Ford.
Equally cheap and dangerous and useless.
Yeah, but for the longest time, I haven't heard one in a long time, but about like 10 years ago, there were like a couple of years in a row where there's like reports, like those investigative reporters who like go in there, either like they like pretend to be a worker, or they actually get hired as a worker to really expose what's going on inside of it. Like one of the expose came out for a couple of years in a row. They were talking about how, because these are literally industrial farms. Everything is done mechanically. There's no like hand picking, none of that. Everything just gets picked. So these machines with the fucking like gigantic football size, half the football size arms coming down tractor, just picking up all the fruit in the rows and rows of vineyards. And any bird, any fucking rodents, any rabbits, anything that get caught in that thing just gets cut up. And so this worker wrote a whole expose about how this wine had live animals that got like dumped into it. So that's just even the picking part. What you're talking about is like how the wine gets manipulated afterwards. But like it was just talking about how like there's collateral damage, collateral fucking animals that just essentially just get killed in this process. So there's probably some rat blood. I think the title of the article was like, there's a rat there's a rat in your wine, or some shit like that. It's like some very clickbaity, kind of stuff.
Well, the Jungle was like 100 years ago at that book.
Yeah, that's true. It gives a whole new meaning to this wine. Tastes a little mousy.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
There's an actual
Yeah.
mouse.
What we've been talking about is not literal mousy, but like these ones are literally mousy.
Yeah.
Well, they have laws regulating the quantity of insect parts can be in meat. Why not?
Yeah. So, hey, more protein, right?
But like, so to the wine adjustment, like anything
To
that
the
you have in
adjustment,
wine,
yeah.
you adjust. They adjust color, they adjust acid, they adjust tannin. They
Every aspect of it.
They can, so oakiness. There's
Yeah.
like they chip wines, which basically means instead of like putting wines in barrels and aging them, you just stick in a bunch of like discs of oak in the
or sawdust,
or you
like
just
literal.
pour oak in as like a liquid oak. I mean, it's like created. It's a chemical cocktail that tastes like wine.
Yeah.
Maybe up to 5% immigrant farm worker.
I mean, by the way, it's not just U.S. and to Joe's point, like we're not even talking about actual labor practices, like the human side of all of this, which is fucking atrocious. But this also happens in Europe too, like a lot of German wines, like a lot of German Rieslings, like commercial German Riesling. If you pick up a bottle of like Mosel Riesling on a grocery shelf that costs like $10, the chances are that thing was chaptalized, meaning like sugar was dumped in there to jack up the fucking alcohol level.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different flavoring. I mean, this is not just U.S. problem. Like this is a global wine industry problem. And that's part of the reason why like natural wine is why, like, you know, it caught momentum and, you know, why it became popular. So like, it's always crazy to me, like it's hilarious to me that I see all these folks who go to like Whole Foods that like, I only eat organic. So they're like buying, like, they're like reading the back of the labels of all this food. And then on their way out, they just like go to shelves and they like pick up like, you know, that $5 bottle of wine. I was like, why, like how, and this has been the gripe of the wine profession for the longest time. It's like, how do we make that connection? Like we were able to do that with a cage-free chicken.
Right.
How can we do that with wine? Like, why is it that as consumers that you're not connecting that all the agricultural product on the non-wine side, you get it. But when it comes to wine, you're like, I want the cheapest fucking thing that there is. Why is that? You know?
Well, I mean, I guess like people just sort of don't realize that you cannot make wine for less than $10. Like, it's
Yeah.
not possible to do unless you don't really do it and you do it with chemicals, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. People just don't understand the cost of it, right? I mean, it's the same thing with everywhere, right? Fashion, like the fast fashion that we do. It's just like shitty jeans, the shitty shirts that we used to wear for a couple months, a couple years, and you throw away. You know, all those things to food, to wine. I mean, it exists in every facet of modern life that we live now. But just because I saw the switch in people's dining public's opinion about organic food and how much they value that and how much they even seek out restaurants and people because of that. I mean, quite frankly, now, like restaurants, like you can't survive unless you are like sourcing responsible meat and produce, right? Like that's not even like a rarity. Like it's everybody does it. Like you don't even question it. But with wine, it's still not like that. And I don't know what that missing link is. I don't know what the linchpin is that will make that the structure that corporate agro wine industry has built and how to make that disassemble or crumble. Where's that linchpin? Like, what is that one thing that we can pull that will make that crumble? So I don't know. Still seeking. Anyways, to answer your question, Julia, this is a very long one that got off the topic. They're about 70 different additives legally that you can add to wine without exposing, by the way, without disclosing it.
Right. Right.
In EU, and there are about 90 in US.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's anywhere from mega purple, like not only acidification, it has nothing to do with even the flavor, like color.
Yeah.
You can adjust the color, you can adjust body. I mean, every aspect of wine, like every aspect of what we talk about on that grid, people
Right.
use.
Can be
There are things that they use to manipulate.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I knew there was like a lot, like I knew that there were a lot of interventions that could happen to wine. I just like hadn't really thought that like some of those those, I don't know, the basic fundamental of how like, you know, how you're
Yeah.
identifying wines, like that it would just feel like it's like we actually are just like adding like flavors and adding, you know, like
Yeah. 100%. That's why you all are responsible wine drinkers by joining wine club like this, drinking the wines that. I mean, given I don't do like a full-on due diligence of every wine that I feature. I'm sure behind the curtain there are things that could be better, or maybe they're not disclosing either. But you know, it's where
Like sustainability and labor practices, like even these natural winemakers, they just won't talk about it. What was it?
Yeah,
Like 2.5 years ago, you had some winemaker,
yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, our people have like great labor practices and sustainability." I was like, "How do you know that?" And they're like, "We just believe them." I was like, "Well, like, but what if they don't?" And they're like, "But I mean, we believe them. They do." And I was like, well, you're telling people that they do, but you have no idea."
Right.
And she's like, we just that's all we can do. I was like, "What doesn't sound like all you can do? You could like go look."
I mean, they do, but they don't. Like so, it was Jenny and Francois. I remember this conversation.
It was, yeah. I mean,
and then
basically,
I remember,
like the issue is like they're making a representation about a value proposition of their wine portfolio, but they have no clue whether what they're saying is true.
Yeah. Yeah, or even if they do, so they do go out. I remember talking to Jenny, and then she says she's gotten to a size now where like she can be there herself, but she she to this day she visits all the producers at least once in a year, or tries to, but she's gotten to a size where that's becoming difficult because she's gotten bigger. But and she tries to put that into like harvest time as much as possible because that's where like you're going to see a lot of stuff. Quite frankly, like if you go there in the wintertime in the winery, like you're never going to see labor practice. So, like, you know, it's just like wines that are just fermenting away. Like it's just fine.
Right.
Um, but it's still very much like one snapshot of the labor history of that winery in the year. Like it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So she's at least doing that, right? Like she's going out there visiting, but totally agree with you. Like at the same time, it's not an accurate, full, entire representation picture of the labor practice of the whole winery. So
Well, and like I get that they can't do it, like logistically, like that's fine, right? But like I'm not going to tell you everything in my house is sustainably sourced. Like I didn't buy half the stuff in my house. I bought my house, right? Like
Yeah.
I can't make that representation.
yeah,
I can say we try to do this, or like, you know, we do our best.
yeah,
But like they had kind of like a bold statement of like,
yeah. Our producers are all yeah.
yeah, look, okay. I mean, that's really cool. How do you know? Oh, we don't have any idea. We just like try. I was like, oh, okay. Like there should be a certification, honestly. There should be, you know, like there's a Demeter certification or like a biodynamic certification,
Yeah.
organic. They should have one for labor practices.
I mean,
never gonna happen.
we should exactly. We've been talking about this for the longest time, even in restaurants. Like, you know that how New York started the letter grade system for health and sanitation standards, like the A through F, like the grade. Like, why don't we do something like that for labor practices for restaurants?
Yeah.
We don't
Never gonna happen.
have
But
labor in this country. Like that's the answer to that.
or anywhere, yeah, exactly. Any business that you as a public agree with, like, should have a grade for certain standards and grade for like how they measure it there. But
It wouldn't be a
never
problem if you just bought American coffee.
yeah, grown and made by Americans, you know.
Grown right in Pennsylvania.
When we take over the Panama Canal Zone, we'll have easier access.
Yeah, exactly. Hey,
I think what's kind of funny is like you know, people talk about wine purity. Alcohol in general has like this perception from Americans that it's okay because it's like passed through the eye of the needle of being alcohol that we've been introduced to for forever, right? So it's like, oh, you know, everyone will pick up a glass of Modelo and drink it, and yet go to Mexico for vacation. But can I brush my teeth with this water?
yeah.
There's a cognitive dissonance when it comes to alcohol. That's just absurd, you know. But like only the nerds who know how it's made would actually appreciate that. And you know, until you kind of bridge that gap, where you're like, well, it's alcohol, therefore it's safe. You know, that's kind of why people look at wine differently than they would a pile of strawberries, because you know we've been conditioned to be told that, well, it's when it's fermented or whatever, people don't even know that word, that it's therefore like blessed, and who knows what happened besides it, whether the beers or the alcohol came from the Baltics, China, or Mexico. Well, it's beer, right? It's safe. And why is that? You know, it's just because people are conditioned to think that way.
So one thing that's interesting is I've been watching videos of people in the tequila industry talk about tequila additives, and it seems like there's a lot of like discussion right now about additive free tequila, and the tequilas that are additive free are like saying additive free tequila. And I feel like it might be just like a weird corner of the internet that I, you know, go to. But I actually think that maybe there's some value in that, like additive free wine or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for a wine to be completely additive because if they're at the minimum, most are going to be sulfites free, unless you're talking about 0.0 wines, where it's like literally all it's grape that is additive free.
Right.
But
They should just say it's additive free if the only additives that are there are additives for things like preservation purposes,
Yeah.
like
Or naturally occurring, like without them adding sulfites, there's already going to be sulfites in the wine because it's fermented.
or they could just say additive free means we don't do any additives to change the flavor of the wine.
Yeah. I know it's an interesting conversation, right? Like with the food, right? Any kind of like a agricultural product that came out, like a jam, for example. If you cooked it with the sugar, if you cooked fruit with sugar, right? Like, I mean, that is an additive, right? Like that's a way to eat fruit, but cooked. There's lemon and other things. Yet with wine, if you add sulfites, which is naturally occurring substance in any kind of fermented product. I mean, I guess there's a lot of education there, right? Like people don't know there's sulfites in cheese, there's sulfites in charcuterie, there's sulfites in dried mangoes, you know? But if that's added, yet, I mean, let's be real. First of all, people don't even know there's sulfites being added. There's sulfites in the wine, but you know, looking at that, people automatically, oh, like sulfites, it just sounds like a chemical. Like this is like a bad, it must be automatically bad for us. I feel like there's certain kind of like a negative connotation with that. So anyway.
It starts with the assumption that the water and the soil and the fertilizers are all pure.
Right.
Yeah, no sulfites, totally Demeter, all that bullshit. Like I did it, made it totally pure. But I grew it in Jersey, like underneath the bridge. Like that would be equally, clean according to that standard.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's also political too, right? Like even organic farming, people don't know that you can legally spray fields and products with the copper and sulfur. Like that's allowed in organic farming. USDA organic labels, you can go out there and spray it with sulfur and copper. It all depends on the dosage and how close to the harvest you can do it, but you can. So I don't know. It's all like a public perception, public education, and all of that. And it particularly to me seems to be a big hurdle or a big jump for wine or any alcoholic beverage to you guys' point. And I don't know why that is.
Yep. I can make 001 under the P Street Bridge. We'd be drinking.
Yeah, just only eat organic food and piss into a bottle. Is that the P Street Bridge one?
Yeah, I have a question that
Yeah.
doesn't relate to the additives, but this wine has really no length,
Finish.
no finish, no length. How would he do that when another bottle of the same grape would have a long finish or at least?
No, so that's interesting. I'm glad you point that out. That was one of the only thing that I noticed about this wine, even from the very first time I tasted it. It's like, okay, everything's great. It's got the intensity, it's got the complexity, really interesting, like a beautiful mouthfeel, many different things going on here. It's interesting, but then the finish, like I just wish it just stuck around longer. And to tell you the truth, I don't know. I don't know what makes wine taste longer and what doesn't. I've had, for the longest time, I thought it was a matter of like extraction and ripeness. But I've had like very ripe extracted wines that have very short finish. But I've also had very light touch kind of wines that have lasted much longer. So I don't really know. And my guess would be that it probably has less to do with what happens in the cellar, but has more to do what happens in the land, like the farming side of it. But I haven't done the research yet, so I don't know.
So wait, they don't, like, as a matter of like chemical, they don't know what makes a long finish?
I'm not saying that people don't know. I just haven't done that.
You just don't know. Well,
Yeah,
like,
I
I feel like they should know this.
yeah,
Someone
But-
should know this.
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, there you go. There may be a new rabbit hole that we or I go down on. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I don't know what makes what if you can predict that this is gonna have a long finish or not. I don't know. Because I've had wines that I've called all up until that finish, because right, because the finish is the last thing that we call before you go to conclusion, right? Everything checks out. Oh, intensity, hell yeah. Complexity, great. Balance, amazing, right? And you get to finish, you're like, what the fuck? Like, why does it just fall off so quick, right? And then I've had wines that are like, honestly, even if it's not great, it's like, it's fine. But then it just kind of lingers. You're like, what is happening here? So yeah, I don't know. To tell the truth, Phil, I don't know. It's a hole in my knowledge. I don't understand what
Okay,
caused
they do know the answer.
Okay.
Decanter knows the answer.
What does it say?
It says that it is the interaction of many different flavor compounds with colloids, which are tiny particles that are not removed after refining and filtering, and they consist of pectins, phenolics, and tannins. So it's like the particular nature. So pectin is like what
Yep.
makes, jam
Yep.
turn into jam instead of like juice. Phenolics. And so I guess it's
But this is not
I mean, that's
pectin.
probably a pretty complicated chemical process.
No, but
Yeah.
so you're saying it's just the lack of pectins that causes
No, it's the interaction of those things like with each other, the tannin, the pectins, and the phenolics.
Todd, I didn't realize that today was like one of your first days, by the way. I didn't mean to call on you. It's just I'm in and out. So
That's okay. No, I gotta do it.
but I love that we're doing science on today, the day.
I do science on every day.
Yeah,
But
no.
also we loved your Christmas call as well. So
I couldn't describe the exact thing, but that's what I'm saying.
I love that you leaned into that because it was great. It was super
Yeah.
great. Like, what is
Todd,
that?
Todd, where are you calling in from?
Springfield.
Springfield, Virginia?
Yes.
Springfield, Illinois?
Yes. No, Springfield. Yeah, Illinois. Or you messed me up. Virginia. Yeah.
This is the long running Simpsons gag is that if it's Springfield, it could be from any state in the country.
Exactly.
Is it supposed to Springfield, Kentucky? Isn't the final call?
I don't know. One of the guys I work with most closely
No,
at my firm went to high school with Nancy Cartwright. So he's like, I went to high school with Bart Simpson. And actually he's a very serious, like well-regarded, like nationally known attorney. And he's a huge Simpsons fan. And is like huge Simpsons guy, but also loves South Park and has like little Terrence and Phillip dolls that he like will put in his briefcase and bring to all his arguments.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Like
Wow.
as like a good luck thing. Yeah, he's like pretty like he'll be like at the gym and like the other attorneys, like all serious, like watching like financial news, and he's like watching The Simpsons riding the recumbent bicycle, and people are like, "Are you watching cartoons?" He's like, "No, I'm watching The Simpsons."
They're good.
Pretty funny. Yeah, Springfield. Well,
I love The Simpsons. I haven't watched it in a long time. Is Simpsons still going, by the way? Is that show still on?
yes.
That's amazing.
I
Is
think
that the longest running show ever?
it already was. It was like 10 years ago. It was.
Yeah.
Is it still on? I don't know. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a long time, but I used to love that show.
36 seasons.
What? That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, December 1989 through the present. It is
Can
still
we say something about the pairing recommendation?
Yeah.
Asked
What's
that
up?
question already because we missed the dollar thing because we were chatting. We did the lamb and it was amazing. Like amazing. Like it totally changed it. I highly recommend
This one,
finding
yeah,
Love it.
lamb chops was excellent.
that it all of the cherries and pomegranate that Julia called out, which was also awesome because she happened to say pomegranate just as I was like, oh my God, it's like cherry juice. And I was like, no, it's not cherry juice, it's pomegranate. But it was so great. It was a really, really good call.
Yeah,
And
really good.
we watched the Stanley Tucci going to Sardinia
Ah,
show
Okay.
before this, so it's sort of fun. You didn't talk about wine at all, which is
I know. That's another thing something to talk about, which is also, you know what I can tell that this is 14 and a half? Because I feel hammered right now, and I had like a one
Yeah.
glass or like 2 glasses.
have I been slurring? Is that
Yeah.
why you
No, I feel like I'm slurring right now. Like, what the fuck is happening right now? And I only had like a glass and a half glass right now.
Are we still recording on?
Oh shit. Yeah.